Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's meeting of the United Lodge of Theosophists of Washington, D.C. Today's talk is on cycles. Next week on Google Meet, we will be going over the introduction to the Prone to the Secret Doctrine before diving in deeper the following weeks on the 19th and 26th. Today's reading before our talk is from The Voice of the Silence. Thou canst create this day thy chances for thy morrow, in the great journey or the whole complete cycle of existences in one round. Causes sown each hour bear its harvest of effects, for rigid justice rules the world. With mighty sweep of never-erring action, it brings to mortals lives of weal or woe, its karmic progeny of all our former thoughts and deeds. Take then as much as merit hath in store for thee, O thou of patient heart. Be of good cheer and rest content with fate. Such is thy karma, the karma of the cycle of thy births, the destiny of those who in their pain and sorrow are born along with thee, rejoice and weep from life to life, chained to thy previous actions. Act thou for them today, and they will act for thee tomorrow. 'Tis from the bud of renunciation of the self that springeth the sweet fruit of final liberation. To perish doomed is he who out of fear of Mara refrains from helping man, lest he should act for self. The pilgrim who would cool his weary limbs in running waters, yet dares not plunge for terror of the stream, risks to succumb to the heat. Inaction based on selfish fear can bear but evil fruit. The selfish devotee lives to no purpose. The man who does not go through his appointed work in life has lived in vain. Follow the wheel of life. Follow the wheel of duty to race and kin, to friend and foe, and close thy mind to pleasures as to pain. Exhaust the law of karmic retribution. Gain cities for thy future birth. If sun thou canst not be, then be the humble planet. If thou art debarred from flaming like the noonday sun upon the snow-capped mount of purity eternal, then choose, O neophyte, a humbler course. Point out the way, however dimly, and lost among the host, as does the evening star to those who tread their path in darkness. Our declaration for this introduction, which reads, the policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy, without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy, and the exemplification and practice of those principles, though a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable bias for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea amongst Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization, and it welcomes to all its association those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves, by study and otherwise, to be better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. The following is the form signed by the associates as the Lodge of Theosophists. Being in sympathy with the purposes of this lodge as set forth in its declaration, I hereby record my desire to be enrolled as an associate, it being understood that such association calls for no obligation on my part other than that which I myself determine.
Thank you. Friends, today's talk is on cycles. This doctrine of cycles is one of the most important in the universe. Western investigators have dealt with the subject of cycles in a very incomplete fashion at best, due to the lack of belief in spiritual things and the desire to square everything with materialistic science. But enough was known by the ancients to add considerably to our knowledge. A cycle is a ring or turning as with a screw. Corresponding words in Sanskrit are yuga, kalpa, and manvantara. But yuga comes nearest to cycle, as it is less in duration than the others. Cyclic law prevails in every kingdom of nature. H.P. Blavatsky wrote that in a single life, a person is under the influence of numerous cycles. Each person is affected by the changing seasons of the year. While we have our own seasons, the spring of youth, the summer of manhood, the autumn of adult years, and the winter of old age. We pass through some repetitive changes in our moral mental nature, which correspond to the seasons of Mother Nature. One fundamental difference is that cycles of nature are rhythmical, but man's free-willed actions often do not coincide with those of nature. And one, human pain and suffering may be said to result from personal cycles, not synchronizing with those of and in nature. The statement of the voice of the silence to help nature and work on with her tells us that our human plans should go by nature's dependable clock. Action contrary to nature's law of universal brotherhood spells chaos, retrogression, and discord and strife. Like unusual climate changes we are experiencing today, and related fires and floods we are experiencing. The evolution of the human race can be described somewhat by imagining that before the Earth came out of the gaseous condition, there existed an Earth somewhere in space. The moon was once a large and vital body, full of beings. It lived its life, went through its cycles, came to the moment when it had to die. The beings on that Earth began the exodus from the moon to the Earth. When humans migrated from the moon, this Earth became a ball with beings upon it. The impression made upon these fathers when they lived in the ancient civilizations of the moon came back again when they got to this Earth. We find the races of the Earth rising and falling, and at last coming to what they are now, which is nothing compared to what they will be, for they go ever higher and higher. When the third shall come to its time in life, all beings on it will fly away to some other spot in space to evolve new worlds as elder brothers have done before. We're not doing this blindly. It has been done before by others. It had no beginning. It will have no end. In our August 1 talk on the three fundamental propositions, we heard that the second fundamental includes the absolute universality of, the absolute universality of the law of periodicity, of flux and reflux, ebb and flow, which physical science has observed and recorded in all departments of nature. Night and day, sleeping and waking, are some of the absolutely fundamental laws of the universe. The third fundamental speaks of the obligatory pilgrimage of every soul. That spark from the universal oversoul addressed in the first fundamental through the cycle of incarnation, which is 2b over there. That's the cycle of necessity, in accordance with cyclic and karmic law. No purely spiritual Buddhi or divine soul can have an independent conscious existence before the spark from the universal oversoul has A, passed through every elemental form of the phenomenal world of the Manvantara, and B, acquired individuality, first by natural impulse, and then by self-induced and self-devised efforts, checked by karma. Thus ascending through all the degrees of intelligence, from the lowest to the highest manas, from mineral and plant up to the holiest archangel, or Dhyani Buddha in Sanskrit. There are no privileges or special gifts in man, save those won by his own ego through personal effort and merit through a long series of reincarnations. We say that the force at work in determining the great cycle is that of man himself, considered as a spiritual being, not an outside God. When he is done using the globe he leaves it, and then with him goes out the force holding all together. The consequence is dissolution by fire. Reincarnation, the great law of life and progress, is interwoven with that of the cycles and karma. These three, cycles, reincarnation, and karma, work together. And in practice, it is almost impossible to disentangle them. Individuals and nations in definite streams return in regularly recurring periods on the earth. The souls who made the most ancient civilizations will come back and bring the old civilization with them in idea and essence, which being added to what others have done for the development of the human race will produce a newer and higher state of civilization. The newer and better development will not be due to books, records, or mechanics, arts either. All such physical evidence is periodically destroyed, but the soul, ever retaining in manas, higher self, which we all have, at least in potentia, retaining in manas the knowledge it once gained and always pushing to completer development the higher principles and powers. The essence of progress remains and will as surely come out as the sun shines. And there are points when the small and large cycles of avatars bring out for man's benefit the great characters who mold the race from time to time. Beings, called gods, govern mankind through efficient causes proceeding downward by various degrees. The gods being perpetually concerned in their proper sphere with those things relating to them, and which in their turn moved other causes that produced appropriate effects upon the earth. and themselves only coming directly into earthly relations as necessary as certain, quote, orderly periods of time. Upon the complete disappearance of humanity, which would soon be followed by destruction, if not restored, then the gods themselves descend. This is after the revolution of many smaller cycles, as said in the Bhagavad Gita. That's Bhagavad Gita over here. Frequently, during minor cycles, it is necessary to impart a beneficent impulse. The heroes doing this are adepts, of this are previous manvantras, who remain here in various states or conditions. We know some avatars and other great ones, such as Krishna, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Another great avatar is yet to come, corresponding to Buddha and Krishna combined. At the intersection of the great cycles, dynamic effects follow and alter the surface of the planet by reason of the shifting of the poles of the globe or other convulsion. Man is a great dynamo, making, storing, and throwing out energy. And when masses of men composing a race make and distribute the energy, there is a resulting dynamic effect on the material of the globe, which will be powerful enough to be distinct and cataclysmic. Certain life forms will return again in their own cycle. Certain human languages, now known as dead, will be in use once more at their appointed cyclic hour. Other examples of cycles, number 3, the Metonic cycle is that of the moon. It is a period of about 19 years, which being completed, the new and full moons return on the same days of the month. Number 4, here. The cycle of the sun is a period of 28 years. Number 5, the great sidereal cycle is a period of about 25,800 years. Affecting man especially are these, number 6, spiritual, psychic, and moral cycles. And out of these grow, number 7, the national, racial, and individual cycles. Man is also affected by astronomical cycles because he is an integral part of the whole. These cycles mark the periods when mankind as a whole will undergo a change. In the sacred books of all nations, these are often mentioned. The course of evolution is divided into 4 yugas. These yugas do not affect all mankind at the same time. The present age for the West and India is Kali Yuga, especially in response to moral and spiritual development. The first of these is slow in comparison with the rest, and the present Kali is very rapid. Mr. Judge provided a table on page 125 of the Ocean of Theosophy. Ocean of Theosophy, page 125. There's a table there which we have modified a little bit, not with respect to what Mr. Judge wrote, but added to show that these are mathematical correspondences, and the Kali Yuga being the briefest period of time, as we just said it earlier. So all 4 ages, that is yugas, are shown here. The digits of Ketra Yuga, or the Golden Age, the Tetra Yuga of the Silver Age, and the Dwapara Yuga of the Bronze Age, of the other three ages beside the Kali Yuga, they all add up to 18. While the Kali Yuga only adds up to 9. But of those, of the grand total, 4,320,000, which is, there it is right there, 4,320,000, they make the other 9. And that, with Kali, gives us 18, like I just said. The number 18 is also down here at the bottom. That is what's in the Bhagavad Gita, which is our special devotional book that is used, and it has 18 chapters. So 18 is a special number too. So the relationship of these numbers correspond with the reference in Isis Unveiled at page 32, volume 1, noting the belief that the cycle of the Indian system of 432,000 is the true key of the secret cycle. At the present time, we are in a cycle of transition, when everything in philosophy, religion, and science in society is changing. In a transition period, the full and complete figures and rules respecting cycles are not given out to a generation which elevates money above all thoughts and scoffs at the spiritual view of man and nature. Spiritual knowledge is also given out cyclically, as we just indicated. In the Golden Age, humanity was in its childhood, still innocent and guided by great teachers. The Silver Age was like youth or adolescence, when the spiritual teachers withdrew, but left behind initiate kings to guide humanity. The Bronze Age was like manhood, when humanity was left to itself, but free to seek the help of the adepts. Then comes this age of Kali Yuga, which is predominated by materialism, selfishness, and spiritual darkness. It is the shortest of the yugas. The rate of cause and effect is much faster, but cycles and results are not skipped in this period. So we can do more, learn more, and make more progress in Kali Yuga than the other yugas. Mr. Judge observed, a sincere lover of the race can accomplish more in 3 incarnations on the Kali Yuga's reign than he could in any other age. It is folly then to want to retain one's childhood and repeat and intensify the pleasures of childhood. In fact, the cycle of pleasure shows that the law of diminishing return is there. It sets in when we try to repeat and intensify the pleasures. There's less pleasure the next time we try it. At the approach of this vast day of Brahma, which ends after 1,000 years, all manifested objects come forth from the non-developed principle. At the approach of Brahma's night, all which is fades back into it, which sent it forth. Central spiritual sun, or the deity, as some call it. It is impossible for the human mind to conceive these periods. We are as minor cells in the great body of this being, and must act obediently to the impulses and movements of the body in which we are enclosed and take part. It said in the voice of the silence, work on with nature, and she will consider you her friend and open to you all of her secrets. Writing in 1878, HPB says in volume 1 of Isis, unless we mistake the signs, the day is approaching when the world will receive the proofs that only ancient religions were in harmony with nature, and ancient science embraced all that can be known. With social and material cycles, there are corresponding ones on a higher plane, like the influence of Eastern metaphysics upon the Western mind. The higher cycle had been revolving for many years among the Orientals before we came within its power. The records of Christianity show that the early fathers and teachers taught differently in the beginning from that which the priests of today are teaching. Similarly, you will find that Brahmanism has had its cycle. Every religion rises and falls with the progress of human thought. This law of periodical return pertains also to every individual in his daily life and thought. Number 10, down here. Every thought affects your brain and mind by its impression. That begins a cycle. Every thought begins a cycle. It may seem to leave your mind, but it returns again under the same cyclic law in some form, and wakes up once more the old impression. Even the very feelings of sorrow and gladness will return in time, more or less according to your disposition. This is a law it would be good for everyone to remember. If when depressed, we could recollect the law and act upon it by voluntarily creating another cycle of exaltation, we would in no long time destroy the depressing cycle and which would raise us higher to higher places of happiness and peace. When we begin the study of a difficult subject, there is a difficulty in keeping the mind upon it. We all know that. The mind wanders. It is disturbed by other and older ideas and impressions. But by persistency, a new cycle is established, which at last obtains the mastery. All the nations of the earth should know this law, remember it, and act upon it, knowing that they will come back. They should leave behind something that will raise the cycle higher and higher as they work toward the perfection of mankind. Having a quarrel and denouncing or getting very angry with someone creates an impression that is subject to cyclic law. Such cycles of personal development or evolution are highly important as they affect us in detail. Ignorance about man's own nature, mental laziness, and the selfishness engendered by a false sense of separateness are largely responsible for the retardation of the race as a whole, but the whole is the sum total of its parts. Individuals making the effort to rouse themselves can help. For number 11 down here, no man can rise superior to his individual failings without lifting by ever so little the whole. The elder brothers have confidence and hope because the law we are all under merely means that they appear to go down in order to rise again at a greater height. Number 12. We are connected in an enormous brotherhood, which includes everything, every atom in this solar system. And we come up from lowest forms and are learning how we so mold and fashion, use and abuse, or impress the matter that comes into our charge, into our bodies, our brains, and our physical nature, and cyclical nature too. So that matter shall be an improvement to be used by the younger brothers who are still below us, perhaps in the stone beneath our feet. There is no dead matter anywhere, not even in that stone. Number 13. We imprint matter through our every abusive or uplifting thought and action. As matter is refined and brought up the steps of the ladder in order to let some other matter come up to them. You and I have not been a stone, but the great monad, the pilgrim who came from other worlds, has been in every stone, has been in every kingdom, and now have reached the state of man. Man must show whether he is able to continue being a man, or whether he will once more fall back into the lowest class, like the boy at school who will not learn. The Theosophical movement is successful only to the degree that its spirit is gradually absorbed and adopted by the culture in which Theosophists work. And such success can hardly be measured by any, save those who read the meanings beneath the surface of events. It is so also with the progress of individuals. When we look into our moral character, we find the same thing. As in the ocean tides, so there is tides in man, called returns of impressions. Number 14. If we do a thing once, there will be a tendency to repeat itself. Do it twice, and it doubles its influence. So on all through our character. So on all through our character, which shows a constant return of cyclic impressions. An opportunity will rise for you to do something, so you can neglect it, and the same opportunity will return, although maybe not until another life, but it will return under the same law. We need to realize, number 15, we can only have good results by producing opposite impressions to bad ones. When a depressive cycle returns, we must compel ourselves to feel joyous, even against our will, or at least try to feel the joy of others. When the depression returns, it brings along with it the impressions of counteracting joy. Soon we would establish a joyous cycle. If we eat at regular times, our digestive system is ready and active so that the food is digested well. If we study at fixed times daily, then the mind comes ready for work so that more work gets done. Day-to-day circumstances come to us under the great cycles of karma and reincarnation. HPB's statement over 100 years ago was, like the old prophet says, prepare for a new era of things. Get ready for what you have to do. Mr. Crosby writes in The Friendly Philosopher, opportunity to understand and apply theosophy comes under karma to the very few. Those of us fortunate enough to contact theosophy in this life may ask, quote, how do I use this opportunity? As Mr. Crosby says, it is the height of unwisdom to neglect the opportunity, most especially in those cases where it is brought to home without effort. The theosophical aspirant must try to see the world and humanity as one, and to renounce that which is weak in our habits, customs, and manners and methods, and to adopt better substitutes. Every organ of the whole man must be brought into action. We are a composite of atoms, and every atom is what we're talking about here, as well as the organ itself. Our knowledge must synthesize all branches of learning and all methods by which such learning is acquired. This, number 16, synthesis is the soul of knowledge, and theosophy is that synthesis which we must apply in understanding and expounding all world learning. When we come to realize that we must come back, that we are subject to evolution, that we are reincarnated pilgrims, that we are reincarnated pilgrim souls, we can stay to help those who are left behind. That is what is told of Buddha and Jesus. This great doctrine of renunciation teaches that instead of working for yourself, you will work to know everything, to do everything in your power for those who are left behind. And that's where we'll stop it.
Can I have a question? I didn't understand these numbers.
So it makes you realize though that it said that we are microcosms of the macrocosm. We're talking a macrocosm here. It's also virtually impossible for us to realize that that is our makeup. Mm-hmm. We are stardust. We are spiritual beings. And we deny all that, which is something that we need to get turned around. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that's why I didn't dwell on this. I think it's something that gives us a hint as to what we can become. We have great potential.
Mm-hmm. So there's almost a whole talk on these numbers that can be done.
You could talk, yeah.
And then
there are talks on numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The 9, the 18, the 3, the 4, the 7. All those are important.
Mm-hmm. And then for me it was very interesting when you went into the migration from the moon to Earth and sort of where we go next. It's almost like that's what our destiny, go planet to planet. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking that one was saying the cycle is that you complete the cycle, then you go to the next planet and you evolve even higher, you go to the next, you evolve even higher. But throughout our history, or maybe even when we came to Earth, the cycle shows that we sort of go back down and then we improve a little, then we go back down and we improve a little. And these migrations, they don't seem like these beautiful states when we become more advanced and then we just take a ship and go to the next planet. It seems more like a cataclysm and very few actually who move. That was an impression I was getting, but I don't know, does the Theosophy say anything about it?
Well, we have to think at the, I guess, physical level because that's where we're at. But that's not where most of the action is. I think of it like an iceberg. Mm-hmm. We can only see a little tip of it. And that's what we see when we're embodied. But when we're eternal pilgrims, we're only embodied a little bit of the time. The rest of the time we're in other worlds. It says there's 7 worlds. We only see one when we're embodied. But we move on to the next world when we leave this body and continue our never-ending progress. Or if we choose to do it, downhill slope too. We can go downhill too. So so this is a continuing process. It tends to be upward. It says we have this great future. There's going to be a time in these humongous numbers. We have 5 senses developed now. Well, it's talking 7 senses. Okay, we're trying to develop our 6th sense, which is our psychic sense, which is coming in. That would probably be the next one, and then we have the spiritual, will be totally adept. Every one on this planet will be perfect. Now, some people say there won't be nearly as many people on this planet now as there are now, but that's, we have to prepare ourselves for that type of thing if we want to continue on and be productive. That's a kind of a challenge I've seen in the writings. Mm-hmm. Self-induced and self-devised efforts. You either go up or you go down. Mm-hmm. And you get a lot of chances to go up. I don't know that it ever ends, and there aren't the chances, but you gotta take advantage of every second you got. Even when those numbers are so huge, it's hard to think about what difference does it make whether I waste a day or not. But it also says that we shouldn't be doing that either. Always aspiring to help and teach and all that. So these ideas were certainly, I think, foreign, especially to a Western mind. Because that's the only reason why I think that's the value of this kind of writing. That yeah, we can't understand those numbers, but it's all in there.
So after Kali Yuga will be Maha Yuga, the sequence.
Kali Yuga, yeah, the golden age is now.
Yeah, and that's the long one. Not the longest, but it's long.
Now, yeah, we got the Maha Yuga, and then we circle back around the golden age. It goes in circles. That's the longest one right here. That's the one where
now?
I guess the soul's coming up after most of us. If we've applied ourselves, we've gone up to a higher level. So.
And the numbers, is it like a human years, calendar years, or it's some other?
This is a calendar year right here.
That's calendar year.
That's a calendar.
I see.
Yeah, it starts out with a 1. That's 360 days, they call it.
One model year, okay.
Yeah.
So Kali Yuga is 432,000 mortal years.
Yes.
So that's translated already from the cycle years to our years.
It's a little misleading too. This is called a Maha Yuga when all these are all together. But this is the next age right here, the golden age. Yeah.
360.
That's the total number of all of these yugas put together. That's called the Maha Yuga, I believe. Maha. Yeah. 4,394,294,080,000 years.
We have a long time around.
You work for numbers a lot too.
Exactly. If I see numbers, I need to understand numbers. It's too big numbers.
Yeah. So that just gives you a little hint of, we're in a continuing process of development.
We have Carolina online. Carolina, any questions from your side?
Just a comment. When we talk about cycles, we have to talk also about reincarnation. The two to go together, as well as karma, the law of karma. And question for her, to the rest of the audience, is that when we come back, do we start where we left last time, or is it like evolution has helped us and we start a new cycle a little bit in the sort of an upward
A new upward cycle, yeah. We tend to go upward, and it depends on what we make of it. Once we become human, we advance by self-induced and self-devised effort. It's not natural evolution anymore, like we get up to here through natural impulse, it's called. The animal kingdom and so forth, they're in the natural impulse side of it. But once we become human, the mind is lighted up, and what's that?
When we come back, is that I remember years back when you made the analogy of a screw, that it goes on a spiral.
It goes on a spiral, yeah. It's not a perfect circle. And a screw that's the general process too. But sometimes we go down. It's not exactly a straight line upward either. It's more of a zigzaggy screw. Yeah. with the screw is the closest thing that generally you can think of is to explain what a cycle is.
And when we came from the moon, was the first civilization Atlantis, or there was something before that?
Oh, no. Atlantis.
It was
When
already
you're
late.
talking about that, you're talking about these huge numbers. Because we have the Atlanteans, which is the most recent one we talk about a lot, have already sunk, and they've been sunk tens of thousands of years ago. I don't know how long it was. But they were we were first globular in shape. What are humans now? We're globular in shape. And then we're in the fourth round of the fifth round or some fifth races, rounds and races. We talked about that a lot. But yeah, we had the Lemurian race. That was the third. The second, I think, we were globular and we were sexless. We were hermaphrodites. We were both sexes combined. And then we became separate. Our sexes were separated, and I think the third race. Carolina, you can help me now. And then we.
As far as you went to this third with the Lemurians.
Lemurian, yeah.
I don't remember the names of the first and second races.
I don't either on the top of my head, Carolina.
But they were not very advanced.
The first was we were egg-born at first. You know, in the early first or second, we were egg-born, and we evolved into the bodies that we were giants back then, back in the third or something like that. Carolina has talked about these giant structures in South America. People must have been about, 8, I've heard as much as 18 feet tall, but at least 9 feet, 10 feet. That was kind of normal back a long time ago. But before we became solidified as human beings that we see ourselves in now, a little bit bigger than before, but that was in the third race when we got to that. But before that, we were egg-born. It said we were globular shaped. There was a point where we had 3 eyes. We had another eye.
That's the myth of Cyclops.
Yeah.
Somewhere the myth came from.
We were the Cyclops, yeah. So we've gone through quite a few changes, and it's just hard to think about a little guy looked like an egg walking around, but way back before we became the bodies that we have now. That's what I guess we did.
So we're Humpty Dumpty?
Little antennas, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, that it took a long time to get us up to the Lemurian age, and then that was even before that. We had to, on Earth, we had to develop. The Earth had to develop enough to support us, right? So that goes way back in time. So we've got the development there, which would be a lot of talks, I guess, to talk about that. But it's the idea is not to overwhelm us, but just to realize who we are, because that's who we are. We've gone through all those experiences. It's dormant in us, as the writings say, and we bring that out through our actions and thoughts. The thinking, the thoughts, the key things that Theosophy dwells on are the ideas and the thoughts, because we act on the basis of our thoughts, and if we think right, we're going to act right. So it doesn't really give a lot of credence to what we do. So we're going to do it right. We can do it right if we think right. What's that, Carolina?
Yeah, I wonder if the law of cycles brings us hope, or as we see in recent modern history, like it is said that history repeats itself, and with all these conflicts that humans entered into, like one another, nations against nations, powers against powers, with cycles, knowing that cycles repeat themselves, what can we think of and apply it to modern lifetime?
Well, and you're talking about climate change, and you're talking about these things that are happening there. Yeah, it should scare the hell out of us. But it depends on, if we pick up on this in change, things can be turned around a little bit. We still got a chance. For example, the experts say that if we act quickly, we might be able to get the climate change problem at least partially resolved to the point where we won't be obliterated. But we have short memories. These recent floods we've had, people have actually got killed in New York. Amazing. The subways are just full of water. We'll remember that for a year or two, and then we'll kind of forget and keep on. Hopefully we won't keep on in our old ways after this, but the terrible things that occur are there to teach us a lesson. And we can either learn the lesson or nature will wipe us off, no question about it. So that can cause you a lot of depression, or we can realize that those who come back as adepts, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or thousands of years that'll take, but that's part of the mapping out that, in these books over here. Everyone who is here will be an adept. So therefore, we have to work on getting better if we want to be part of that group. I mean, that's what this student is getting out of these writings.
The other thought I often think about the climate change, and also just that our Earth is finite. We know it's finite. That one day it will end.
Oh yeah,
like there's no
the
option.
moon is dead now.
Yeah.
It's called a dead planet.
And I keep wondering, will we physically depart? Because right now we don't have a plan. Or will become, or those who will depart will be adepts who control basically material, who will be able to transmute themselves spiritually into a new planet and basically transform back into the new physical there. Will it be done on a, basically will we leave Earth mechanically, or will we leave Earth as a consciousness?
We have to rethink our thinking on that too, because it's very difficult to think spiritually. We think in terms of, when we were learning school and stuff, we would laterally, or what's it called, laid out logical thinking. But at a spiritual level, it's automatic. And that's if we get good enough at our thinking process, it will become what an animal has got instinct within their realm. An ant, for example, they know their world, and it said that they are perfect in their world. We have developed all this thinking that goes in, the logic and whatnot, which is important while we embody. But that's where we have the opportunity to automatically think on a broader level, and this student, the best this student can explain it. We're thinking like that ant, except in a much broader scale, in a much more beneficial scale. That ant is living for that colony. We would be living for a much broader aspect, that land as well as everybody in this earth, and maintenance of the earth itself. But yeah, there are planets, and these are planets that we can physically see. Venus, it is said, is a more advanced planet. So there's a lot to be grasped here. I hopefully this hour has caused us to think a little bit and not get too bored. It can be, I mean, that's a mind-boggling thing there to think about those numbers, I know. It boggles my mind still.
I like the number 14, that our mind imprints matter. That we can imprint it in a different shape, that matter is malleable to our mind.
Oh yeah. Well, even our brain, the mind is, where is the mind? The mind is it here? No, this is what the mind uses. But we can get this brain, we can rechannel that brain based on our thoughts, based on the way we use that brain. And I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity here. We've got to think about the opportunity we have, and yeah, we're seeing that the planet is shaking us. We got to do something about it. It's true. Al Gore, I remember the thing Al Gore did. I'm kidding. Well, I'm still on the subject. Maybe we got to stop soon. I saw that what he put out, that movie. That was a really earth-shattering movie. Maybe 20 years ago.
The Inconvenient Truth. Yeah.
Inconvenient Truth. Perfect. We saw that in Greenbelt, Melbourne, at the old theater there. And I said, wow, now he's laid that out for us, we're going to start paying attention. Yeah. Now we're going to pay attention because we're really getting blasted, just like he said was going to happen. Okay, well, we'll officially call this closed. I think, is everybody got a burning question left? I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, Carolina,
Thank you,
for
Carolina.
joining.